we can start with our fourth training in the frame of Net4Forest project. It is nice to see so many familiar faces again. We were hoping to have this training in person, but unfortunately the situation is not how to say good enough to organize this kind of events, to travel to foreign countries. So we are here again on screen, and we will see how we will proceed with the final conference of the project. So thank you to Estonian and Latvian partners who prepared this last training. It will be, I think, 5 interesting days. We divided this only into 2 parts. So this week we have 3 days, and then next week we have 2 days of training. The agenda will be presented a little bit later. I will not go into details now. You probably noticed that the training is recorded, and these videos will be available on internet later on, so that if you will miss some important information, you can go back there to check. What is also important is that you change your name, so that we will know from which country you come from. So it's enough if you have your name, surname, and a country. Otherwise, we don't know who is Yuri's iPhone, for example. It would be nice to have your names and countries also because of the reporting later on. I think we will have enough time also for the discussions, questions. I think we have interesting topics. As always, we will get, I think, in-depth insights into the forestry in 2 countries, Estonia and Latvia. So I think in both days we have time also for coffee breaks and for to stretch your legs and grab coffee or tea. And mainly the meetings will be finished, or training will be finished each day before 1 o'clock, so before lunchtime. So this is the general structure of the training. So welcome and enjoy this ride through Estonian and Latvian forests. And now I will give the floor first to the colleagues from Latvia. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nika. From Latvian side today, this morning, we will have 2 presentations. After me, it will be a presentation from Latvian State Forest Management Company. There is a change of the lecturer because we're supposed to have Tomas Kotovic, but he has to participate in a board meeting today, and so there is a replacement. It will be another person giving the presentation, and then in the afternoon it will be the Estonian program part. Relating my presentation this morning, I am going to give some introduction to give some basic figures and some facts about Latvian forest sector. And Mara will be handling my presentation. Can you, Mara, try to open it and bring it to the screen?
Can you see it? Is it okay?
Yes, but it's not in the presentation mode. Okay, now it works.
Okay. Very good, very good. So I based it on this information booklet Ministry of Agriculture has on its webpage, and it's updated every year. So some figures are a bit old also in this booklet, but let's see how it goes. I think, Mara, we can go to the next one. Okay, some general background. Latvia is not very big country. It's altogether 6.4 million hectares. And out of that territory, 3.4 million hectares are covered by forest, a bit more than one half. So in terms of forest cover percentage, we are of course far behind Slovenia, but still quite forested country. Forest land has been expanding very much over the last 100 years, and it's still growing. Today that growth space is not so big. It's about 4,000 or 5,000 hectares per year, but forest is being added. And part of that is also that we can get in Latvia EU funding for planting new forest on unused agricultural land. So there are people who use that, and every year it adds some forest area to the total. Volume of timber, standing volume of timber in Latvian forests, it's also growing from year to year. Today we have about 682 million cubic meters, and if we divide these cubic meters by area, we get about 200 cubic meters per hectare. That is, in my opinion, quite a lot. In my opinion, it represents. I remember some 20 years ago when I was first getting interested in forest-related statistics. It was 182 cubic meters. Today it has grown to 200. It in a way represents general practices of Latvian forestry. It represents different forest management restrictions, lately environmentally motivated, but it represents how it is. 200 cubic meters per hectare. I think it's quite a lot, and it's still growing. We do some cutting every year, and from year to year, it's somewhere between 11 and 12.5 million cubic meters we cut down. According to estimates, some 3 million cubic meters are decaying in the forest every year. So that's also a little bit saying something about Latvian forestry practices. And the standing volume is increasing every year by some 3 to 4 million hectares. So that's the rate it's growing. For the national economy, forest sector is important. We produce about, depending on year, 5% of the GDP and about 20% of the exports. It's important employer. About almost 50,000 people work for forestry and for harvesting and for logistics and for timber processing. So that's quite a lot for Latvia. We have a very diverse system of forest management restrictions, and in one way or another, it covers 28.2% of the total forest area, which I consider also quite a lot, and particularly because we are a flat country with no mountains, no steep slopes. We don't have any areas north of the Arctic Circle, so for us 28%, I think it's quite a lot. State owns half of the forest, the other half is owned by private forest owners, but of those private lands, about 1/3 is owned by companies. And we have the right of the people to hike and go and pick mushrooms and berries in Latvian forests. That's practically everywhere allowed. It's not so easy in our legislation to ban it. So you can go and do in the forest quite a lot of things quite freely. And then the number of places for recreation, they are also growing quite a lot. Of course, this is very much thanks to the activities of Latvian State Forest Management Company, also Nature Conservation Agency, and some municipalities. I have never seen a private company investing in recreation in forest. Maybe there is some example, but I have not seen it. But these state-owned on state land, there is quite a lot going on this, and that's very good development. Mara, can we please go to the next? Mara, can we go to next slide, please?
Don't you see the next slide? I opened.
Oh, yeah. Then regarding institutions, forest sector is under Ministry of Agriculture in Latvia, and we don't have Ministry of Forestry and Agriculture, we have Ministry of Agriculture. So the priority and the lobbying power, it is on the agriculture side. Forestry is kind of number 2, and then fisheries probably number 3. That's how it is ranked in this country. Then we have State Forest Service. That's what we casually call state police. They handle the database of forest resources, and that's a place where we go and ask for cutting permits when we do want to cut something in our forests, and they look after that everybody is acting according to the legislation and all the requirements. And if we break something and do something illegal, then they go after us and with some punishment and fines. So that's a very important organization. It is under Ministry of Agriculture. And then important player is Latvian State Forest Management Company. As state forests are 50% of all forests, then we have to deal a lot with them. Particularly, they are very active in building forest roads, forest infrastructure, and very often private forest owners need to use those when they want to transport. There are 2 important lobbying organizations that try to influence legislative process. One is Latvian Forest Owners Association, and we will have 2 presentations from this organization on Thursday. One relating challenges in private forestry, another relating also very hot topic in this country, which is game and hunting. As hunting lobby is strong, and we have ever increasing number of game animals that are destroying young stands, making growing pine practically impossible. So it's a lot of hot issues around that, and I hope we can discuss that on Thursday. Then there is the timber industry, wood processing industry has Wood Processing Industry Federation. That's also quite important player. Then we have Rural Support Service, which is agency which distributes EU funding for forestry related projects, also quite important. And as these environmental aspects are becoming more and more important, then Nature Conservation Agency, which is not under Ministry of Agriculture, but under Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development, that is also an important player, and we will have 2 presentations from them. One will be tomorrow morning regarding nature census, looking for these biotopes in forests, trying to identifying them and trying to protect them. And then next week we will have one presentation from a regional director of this conservation agency about nature protection in Latvian forests. Mara, can we please go on? In Latvian forests, there are three so-called commercial tree species. That's Scotch pine or Pinus sylvestris, Norway spruce or Picea abies, and birch or Betula pendula. In addition to that, we have, well, in wet forests also black elder, but black elder is almost glutinosa. I think it is not so commercial, but it grows in wet places where nothing else grows. So it has always been here. And then we have gray alder and aspen, which in my opinion, maybe there are other opinions, but in my opinion, I would call those are failures of forestry. So when something goes wrong, we get these tree species, and in the long run, they will probably be some resource of fuel wood. And if there will be demand for that fuel wood, it's okay. But generally, that means ineffective use of forest land, in my opinion. Can we go on, Mara? Situation is very different if we compare state-owned forest, which in my opinion, has quite good tree species composition, and so-called other forests or private forests where this composition is different. And there are, of course, many reasons for that. In private forests, birch dominates almost 40% of the forest stands. It's not a bad tree species, but it is depending on what kind of forestry have been used there. But we do have a lot of these gray alder and aspen, and what are the reasons? I will go on later. Mara, please, can we move? So state-owned forests, 49%, private forests also about half, and 1/3 of forests are company forests. We have seen since 90s, I would say over the last 25 years, we have seen quite a lot of quite active forest land market, and a lot of forest has been sold. Companies have accumulated these packages. When we talk of company forests, there are big part of those is foreign capital. So there is some political issue about foreigners buying up our lands and so on. But of course, the forest management quality in state-owned forests, I would consider it's quite good. In these private companies, I would also consider it's quite good. And in family forestry, there are many challenges still outstanding, and concerning knowledge and understanding and advisory service availability, and many people still, when the generation change in the ownership happens, they go with that land to the open market and sell it. And there are some forests in local government ownership. They are usually also not very well managed because of a lot of restrictions on what municipalities can do, and also the short-term thinking, because management of the municipalities, they usually change, and they often change in every 4 years, so it's not very much long term. Can we, Mara, move? For some reason in this booklet of 21, we have information on owners from 2017, but what I can say is that we see more and more forests in family forestry in this group of 10 to 50 hectares. That's the people who want to be in forestry in longer terms. They usually accumulate some neighbor's forest, or some forest in their ownership, and that's the bracket where they usually stay. Over 50 hectares, most of the cases, these are company owned. And we do have the 60% of forest owners are in this less than 5 hectare bracket, but only 10% of the forest is there. And these are small, these are usually problematic from the forest management practice point of view. Please, Mara, can we go to next? As I said, about 12 million cubic meters we are cutting annually, and the green part is state forest and the blue part is private forest, and it's rather even. One thing that this picture illustrates is that sometimes we say in private forestry that state forest management company is to different market disturbances, they are reacting as an elephant in a glass shop, and we see this bulge in 2009, 2010, 2011, when state forest was cutting more than usual, and there are two reasons for that. These were years of low price, so state needs certain money from its forest management for the state budget every year. So if they want to stick to that income target, then state forest needs to cut more in years when price is low. So they do cut more, and that presses the price in the roundwood market even lower. So that makes life for the private forest owners and companies working in private forest sector very difficult, because if the price is pressed down, owners don't cut, and there is no work for forest harvesting companies and logistics companies, and workers are leaving and going to the companies that work for the state forest, and it's not easy at all. But that's the way it is, and also. I would say that processing company and timber buying lobby is, in my opinion, a bit stronger than forest owner lobby. So they can, in such years, push through policies that lower the timber price even lower, and at the expense of private forest owner who is suffering, and companies who work in this private forest. Mara, can we please go on? One interesting aspect in Latvian forest sector is that we don't have our own pulp manufacturing industry, and in Baltic states we don't really have a serious. There are some small companies, but we don't have a serious pulp industry. So pulpwood, which inevitably is harvested in pine, spruce, and birch stands, only partially is consumed within the country by the board industry, and at certain price level by the pellet industry. This pulpwood is exported, and Swedish and Finnish, also to some extent, not so much German, but Swedish and Finnish pulpwood buyers, they use our market as an instrument to regulate their domestic market prices. So there are years when we have huge demand for pulpwood. We actively go into thinning. We do a lot of thinning, and everybody is happy, and then the price, which fluctuates in our case from 30 euro per cubic meter to about 60 euro per cubic meter, it's a big swing. It just goes up and down. And if you invest in some first thinning equipment, then at 30 you have a lack of demand for that equipment, and at 60, of course, everybody wants to do thinning. So it goes up and down. These figures are from 2019, and we see that quite a lot of thinning is happening, but not every year this is like this. It's also some kind of local specifics. Mara, can we please go on? Forest regeneration. I am totally not happy about this figure that we see, this graph that we see, that about 1/3 of cut areas, clear-cut areas, are regenerated by planting seedlings, and about 2/3, and a situation in family forestry is quite catastrophic, actually. About 2/3 are regenerated by so-called natural processes, and we do have a lot of forest owners that still believe that God will come and take care of their regeneration, and they can do nothing, they can invest nothing, and everything will be fine. It's also that timber buying companies, they're not very interested in this regeneration. They can earn money in selling and buying timber. They cannot make very much money in regenerating cut areas. So they are not promoting that. And also the seedling production industry, which is very much concentrated in one company, in state forest management companies' hands. We have very few seedling producers that are private, and they are very small. Their capacity is kind of mirroring this trend. So even if tomorrow we want to significantly increase this, we would have to import the seedlings, and importing the seedlings is not always so easy. So we are a little bit stuck in this, but and this big percentage of natural regeneration, it is of course having some consequences, which I will show in later slides. Please, Mara, can we go? This a little bit illustrates what we are regenerating our forest with, and most is actually, if we put together aspen and gray alder, the two species that are not, in my opinion, are not efficient use of your land, then they are even more hectares altogether than we are regenerating with birch. Aspen and gray alder, of course, it's all natural. Birch, practically all is also natural regeneration. 10 years ago, nobody was planting birch. Today, we are planting some birch, 1,500 hectares in 2019, but that's usually in agricultural lands, in projects where EU funding is used for planting. Normally, it's all natural with all the consequences of the stand quality. Pine is planted, practically all. Spruce is planted, practically all. Outside state forest, very few people plant today pine, because damage from elks, deer, and roe deer is so big that you have to, for 3, 4, 5 years, use some protective measures to repellents to keep those stands alive, and it's so expensive that very few people plant pine today in private forestry. State has declared some poor fertility stands where only pine can be growing, and that is causing some consideration. But other way, people, if they plant, they usually go the spruce way. And spruce is popular tree species. We have had the state forest management company's director about 10 years ago saying that if you don't plant spruce in your forest, then you are committing a crime towards your pocket. So spruce is popular. And then what else? Gray alder is, of course, there are wet places where only gray alder grows, so part of that is planted. We have very little other species, such as oak and ash. Ash is, of course, having this disease, so ash is disappearing fast but it has never been very significant tree species. Oak, I can say Latvia is a perfect example of a country where theoretically oak can be grown and can be grown very well, but some time ago state decided to ban oak clear cuts, and so we cannot clear cut. We can only practice multiple canopy forestry in oak dominated stands. And what this has caused is that first, nobody is planting oak. Second, if you have some oak stand, then in thinning you kind of try to take that oak out and change the tree species so that you have more freedom in your forest management decisions. And I personally like oak. I don't think it's a good outcome of policy, but that's what has happened. Can we, Mara, move on? So these are the percentage-wise what tree species we are planting. About pine, it's kind of sad because if we look 100 years ago, 200 years ago, practically all Latvian forests were pine forests and some spruce forests. It was very little birch and very little aspen, practically no gray alder. Last 100 years of different historic and forest management and policy and all kind of decisions has brought us to this kind of tree species distribution. And Mara, if we can go to next one. And particularly, I don't like what we see in this so-called other forests, the bottom circle, where gray alder, we are regenerating 20% of our cut stands in private forests with gray alder and 19% with aspen. So practically 40% of the forest land is regenerated by tree species that are commercially not very wise, not very good tree species. In 20, 30, 40 years, we will have to, there will be some wood growing and we will have to use it in some way. And that's definitely not the tree species that sawmills want, that plywood mills want, that market pays good price for. Can be more ago. Regarding thinnings, it has been, if we look back 2007, 2008, situation was quite catastrophic because EU funding was not available. Very few private forest owners did pre-commercial thinnings, and only place where this was taking place was state forest. Then EU funding arrived and the situation improved quite well. Today, I think we are fine. There have been years when private forest owners have been doing pre-commercial thinnings more than state forest. And there is still definitely a place to grow, but situation with thinnings in Latvia is quite good. The big problem is labor and who is doing those thinnings, and prices go up quite significantly from year to year, and there is a lack of manpower, which is probably in all countries. But But generally, we're still fine. Mara, can we go on, please? The forest establishment, the afforestation of the unused agricultural lands, it is taking place. It has been at times a discussion topic with the farmers who don't like it and so on, and EU funding is available in our case for this purpose. If you want to plant some unused agricultural land, there are some hectare restrictions, how much you can do it, but with EU funds, but about 5,000 hectares, 4,000 or 5,000 hectares on average are increasing our forest cover in Latvia. Mara, please go on. Exports, about 20% of the export value for the Latvian economy comes from the forest sector. It's growing from year to year. And one thing I wanted to mark here is that if we look from year 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, we have been in a place where more than 40% of Latvian exports have come from forest sector, which is kind of, which shows a little bit about the state of the economy. But I'm happy that other sectors have caught up and improved, and today at 20, I think it's a good, comfortable level for Latvia. Mara, please go on to the next. About GDP, then we have this 5%. It also changes from year to year. We are increasing from year to year. So that's the importance of the sector. It's I think it's quite good. Mara, please go to the next. And employment, this picture shows the red color is forestry and forest harvesting. Green color is manufacturing and timber processing, and yellow is furniture. Furniture is also quite active, and there are companies that are producing stuff for IKEA shelves and so on. But almost 50,000 have been employed by the forest sector. If we compare to 2005, 78, there has been some decrease. And of course, mechanization of the harvesting has been a great thing that has happened in this time, going from chainsaw operators to harvesters. That was a big development. Still, we today use a lot of chainsaw operators just because we have larger trees that are difficult to handle by these machines, larger trees with big canopies, and usually, not usually, but often the harvester goes in and does the job, and then the guys with chainsaw will come afterwards and take care of those problematic trees. So we don't have these nice even age, even well thinned stands, good for mechanizing, or heavy stands that be harvested. But with good forestry practice, it will improve. But still, as you saw from the pictures, there are a lot of forest stands where this good forestry practice has not reached. Mara, can we go to next one, please? Mara, can we go to next slide, please?
I think it was the last slide.
Yeah, I think it is also the last slide. I have used 41 minutes altogether. So if any we can ask that, and
we are losing you a little bit, Gregory.
Eric has a question.
Hello, everybody. Eric from Sweden. Maybe it's too early to raise this question, but are there any cooperation with your neighbors in your forestry? For example, your big neighbors to the east. Is there any kind of wood flow or education activities or whatever?
Cooperation in a way is that if you mean big neighbors, you mean probably the eastern neighbors. We do buy wood from them. Yes, that's close to, if we cut 12 million, then close to 1 million we import. And as in these countries, the customs and all kind of things change, regulations change from year to year. So they are not very predictable suppliers of wood for our wood processing industry, but we do buy wood from them in the same way as we do buy wood from other countries west of Latvia, like there have been some sawlogs coming in from Norway and other countries as well. So other cooperation I cannot immediately think of, but let's see, maybe it comes up.
Okay, thank you.
Then maybe if I can, you were presenting this tree species composition and all the problems with the planting and seedlings and so on. How do you think that in long term the composition of trees will change in the forest? Mainly we saw that in state-owned forests they are planting more pine, but in private forests there are more actually natural regeneration, so the forest will be more broadly. So how this will influence also in long term the wood processing industry? Do you have any idea about that? Thank you.
Sadly, we often see that pine, also pine, spruce and birch stands that are commercially important stands after clear cutting have been replaced by some low quality stands that as a result of natural regeneration process that we see that this land it is for some time taken out of producing raw material for sawmills, producing raw material plywood. Of course, this impact in some decades, but not tomorrow. But have to somehow copy that development. And State Forest is increasing its seedling production capacity step by step. So there is increasing supply of seedlings in the local market. That's kind of good development. We have had years when you cannot buy seedlings just because they are not enough in the market. And then you are forced to think of some natural regeneration or something like that. Everybody understands the problem, but still not much is done about it. And cooperatives is one way of catching those forest owners and putting them in a system where they are explained and educated and taught what are the right ways to manage your forest land. But what we have seen, the cooperation, it has covered only very small number of total forest owners. So it does not really have significant impact. And as long as that impact is not happening, of course, more forest land is concentrated under the companies. They will improve. They will improve those stands, and even if they buy poor stands, they often cut it down and make it a good stand in the future. But so that concentration process will have some positive impact. But other way, I think for some time in the future, we will still have regeneration with gray alder, regeneration with aspen, and maybe it will gradually go down, but it is here it will be here for us for some time. And that will inevitably affect wood flow to the industry and what is in that wood flow.
Okay, thank you. I think we have two questions from Kalvis. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So Kalvis Kons, Skogforsk, Sweden, actually Latvian born. Grigoris, I have a question, like you already mentioned, about this private forest owners cooperation. And I mean, it has been in the discussions for at least since I was studying in Latvia, so more than 10 years. Can you elaborate a bit more, like what is the developments in that part and why it's maybe struggling compared with Sweden and Finland?
Will you hear me next Thursday? Because I will have presentation on this topic. It is difficult to explain in few words, but will you hear me then?
Most probably.
Yes, yes. Please do that if you are interested in the topic. It is actually many things. Part of that can be also mentality. Part of that are the decisions that has been taken in cooperatives. It's not so simple. But what I have looked back, I have researched some information on internet about how forest owner cooperation started in Sweden. And this start was very rapid. I don't remember. No, I think it was in the 50s. But this start was very rapid. In Latvia, we have not succeeded in that kind of steep, rapid growing action. We have not had that, and there are of course reasons for that. And some people just think that Swedes are more mentality-wise it's easier for them to accept cooperation ideas than Latvians. I don't know if this is true. Maybe it is some part of that as well. But we are lagging behind what Swedes did in 1950s, and that's a concern for me as well.
Any other questions?
I think if there are no questions, I will be back on Thursday. So with some questions and answers, we can continue that. And otherwise, then we can take a 10-minute break and then continue with the State Forest Management Company, if it's okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. in Latvia's state forest company, and my work is more connected with the communication department, but I'll try today to give you an overview of the whole company and also a little insight in the Latvian forest sector. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to respond. So in general, we are one of the most forested countries in Europe, and our forest coverage has doubled during the last 100 years. So we have more than half of territory covered with forest. And so as you can see, in comparison with the last century, the growth has been very, very significant. And the main tree species are pine, birch, and spruce that covers the forest land in Latvia. So the biggest forest owners or managers in Latvia are listed here in the screen. So we are the biggest company that manages state-owned forest. It's like 1/2 of the whole forest territory. The second is Sodra Group, and the third IKEA Group. And these are two private owners, but the fourth owner or the manager is Riga municipality. So the capital of Latvia owns a lot of forest land in Latvia as well. And the fifth owner is again a private owner. In total, there are more than 144,000 forest owners in Latvia. So a lot of small properties as well that belongs to different kind of private owners. But they all are subject to Forest Act and cabinet regulations that are quite strong in Latvia. This is a short insight in the felling volumes of Latvia during last 30 years. As you can see, they haven't changed a lot, but in comparison, the export value have grown significantly during the last 30 years. And in Latvia, we are mainly working according to the 100 years management cycle. As for example, the pine trees are cut down in clear cut when they reach 101 years of age. And this is like scheme of round timber flow in 2019. So you can see the main profit and the main round timber flow comes from the as we see the division of the tree from the main part of the tree. So we mainly produce high quality round timber in Latvia State Forest, and the thin wood and low value timber and wood chips is just like small portion of the whole tree that is not the industry in Latvia for pulpwood is not so developed yet, so these parts are mainly exported. So about the Latvia State Forest Company, as you can see in our logo, that our main focus is producing plants, growing wood, and providing recreation for Latvian citizens and visitors. And the main forest management principles involve 3 sustainability pillars, like environment, social responsibility, community, and of course economic profit. And we have made also strategic goals around these 3 sustainability principles. We are governed by Ministry of Agriculture, that is our owner, and also it obeys the and follows the rules of Forest Consultative Board, and forest sector is divided into biggest partners: Latvia's state forest company that manages commercially profitable forests, and the other partner is Latvia state forest service, Latvia state forest state service, that has the administrative duties, that it follows also the private owners, how they follow the rule of the Forest Act. So they are supervising and counseling, but we hold the ownership and management duties. So Latvia State Forest Company is founded already more than 20 years ago, and we have grown from several employees to 1,021 employee, and we consider ourselves as one of the Baltics leader in efficient forest management. And there you can see the whole forests that are managed by Latvia State Forests. It's the quarter of Latvia actually, and so 85% are forests, but we also manage the marshlands, wetlands, and different kind of sites of forest infrastructures, and there are also 2% of non-forest land. And this is like a theme of the structure of our organization. I won't go into detail. You can all read it in our internet site, but our main vision and also mission, as we say, we create flourishing Latvia. So there's a great emphasis of development of the regions, and we consider ourselves like a careful and gentle managers and owners of Latvia state forests. And these are also our values that we try to communicate through our employees and through our communication projects. And strategic goals involve, of course, regular profits and positive cash flow, but as well as also development of high added value and innovations. This is one of the strategic focus now in this year. So we focus a lot of innovative programs, and we have created inside the company the acceleration program that attracts different kind of innovative ideas that we try to make into new products. And social goals involve, of course, the recreation, all kind of recreation possibilities, and we also develop motivating work environment. This year we received one of the main prizes nationally for the best employee of Latvia. And of course, environmental goals are the main focus on our everyday basis, and it includes mainly the diminishing the impact of management activities on forest environment. And globally, of course, it's always the fight against climate change and collecting more and more CO2 and producing more and more oxygen. So our products and services include wood assortments, supply of fuel chips, growing seeds and plants. As I already said, services in recreation and hunting. Plus, we also offer mineral resources such as sand, gravel, and IT business system solutions that I will describe in detail later. So the main business principle of Latvia State Forest is outsourcing. We have a lot of partners that we work daily. So all the timber transportation actually is provided by private companies, as well as harvesting, infrastructure building, and forest management. So we involve in total 1,060 companies in all kind of forest management jobs, and more than 7,000 employees. And in total, we see that around 52,000 people are involved in forest and forest sector in Latvia. So it's around 10% of the whole economically active citizens. So our business areas that I already mentioned, but I'll describe now in more detail. You can see like on the screen nicely put on the forest management cycle. We'll start with the LVM seeds and plants. That's also like a beginning of a new forest. And there you can see that we mainly try to grow either bare roots with improved root system or container stock seeds and plants that are now exported also to several countries. I know that Sweden is quite a big export market for Latvia's seeds and plants, and we have several big tree nurseries in Latvia, and also many smaller, but the investments go in last years to the biggest ones that have been developed to quite extent and involve a lot of IT and modern technologies to make this work more efficient and yeah, as you see, the annual volume of sold plants is around 56 millions. And there you can see some nice pictures how the production is made. So also a lot of machine work is included, but still we need also some workforce. So each plant is also treated with bags for protection against forest animals. And so now it's mainly, as I said, container plants against barefoots that were popular some 20 years ago. So now it's mainly either improved root system or container plant that is being produced. And sales have gone up also significantly during the last 20 years, and 40% of all plants are being exported. So forest infrastructure. This is a very important activity for us, because there you can see the comparison between road network in Finland and Russia. We are somewhere in between, and we try to reach higher density of the forest road network so we could make more benefits from the forest land. And right now we are here, like in comparison with Germany, Northern Europe, and Canada, but we'll try to, as I said, to make a much higher density of forest roads in Latvia. And that's why there's a huge investments each year in forest road building. Also for bridges and all kind of drainage systems. And we also produce temporary forest roads that are made from wood planks that provide also the more gentle treatment of the forest soil. There you can see this innovative temporary forest roads that are used by the big trucks, and it can be built in several days, and also it can be used several times, and after using it, the forest is left almost intact. A year later, you can't see any signs of the road used there. Forest drainage is being mainly recultivated, not built newly. So you see the reconstruction result here. And moving on to silviculture. I'm doing a quick overview, as you can see, but if you have any questions later on, we will try to return to some topics if you are interested more. So LVM silviculture involve preparation of soil, forest planting, forest tending, forest protection, safety and firefighting, as well as maintenance of forest drainage systems. And of course, the main aim is to produce a productive and valuable forests for timber production. We have 8 management regions of Latvia in total, and so these regions are covered with these kind of tree species. As I already mentioned before, the pine is the main species in state forest, but if we look in total, the private forests are, the leader in private forest is birch tree. And there you can see the annual stock volume growth in LVM forest, that is 12 million cubic meters, and it's mainly pine. And this is the machine that we use for the soil preparation. And recently we have introduced also robots for planting. And these robots of planting, they already prepare soils themselves, and so they don't. We don't need these tractors then, if the robot of planting is in work. So forest is regenerated mainly with these kind of instruments, and so this year I know that already more than 29 million plants have been planted like this. So tending is annually around 33,000 hectares that is tended, and there you can see the main protection methods that we use in Latvia state forests, like bioplastic, repellents, and wax. So manufacturing of timber products and delivery, it involves planning of the felling sites, selling of timber products, manufacturing them, and delivering them to the companies. And so the main product is roundwood, like more than 90%. Then comes fuel chips, standing trees, and some other products. A lot of schemes and a lot of numbers. I hope you'll get this presentation afterwards, so I'll just quickly go over it. So there you can see the supply of wood assortment and LVM timber sales that has grown also during the last 20 years, like doubled. And we use mainly harvesters for felling and transportation. So annual average volume of transported is 5.5 million cubic meters of wood in Latvia. And there's also some information about subsurface units that we produce, as I said, gravel and sand. And we have, during the last years, also constructed a new laboratory that helps to acquire status of an and does physical, mechanical, and chemical testing. So about geospatial information technologies, we are very proud that we have this geographical information system made for us exclusively, LVM Geo, that we use on our daily basis. And there is data that you can use in forestry as well as in recreation and in other planning purposes, that we also sell and export these data to other companies. Sorry. So these data involve also nature conservation management, and we give these data to our contractors, and so they can use it in their daily work. About LVM recreation and hunting. As you can see, we provide hunting services, park management, licensed fishing services, lodging services for conferences and seminars, as well as wood carving workshops, and actually all kind of environmental programs. And currently, we provide more than 360 recreation sites that are mainly for free for visitors, and we have around 500,000 visitors per year. And the biggest recreation object for recreation in Latvia is day1 Nature Park. And it's very popular amongst the families and children. It has received also the prize of the best family vacation area in Latvia. And there we provide a lot of environmental programs, environmental education programs there. So if you have a chance to visit Latvia, we would be glad to welcome there, and be free to bring your family with you and enjoy all kind of nature attractions. And in our recreation sites and objects, we also try to implement wood constructions, different kind of wood constructions. There you can see wooden bridge in Nature Park in day1 that's made as actually as a laboratory of wood. There's measurements how this bridge reacts to different kind of climate conditions, and it of course serves also a practical function for the visitors of the park. But all kind of wooden structures are being built in our recreation sites, so we can market wood as a nice and modern material for construction, as well as to test all kind of wooden surfaces against climate conditions. So there you can see the visitors per year in LVM Nature Park. So the numbers are constantly growing, and this is a overall overview of turnover of Latvia State Forest. It's been also growing steadily. So this year has been super successful because of the high wood prices in the world. And we are one of the biggest taxpayers in Latvia as well, and one of the biggest investors in forest and all related fields. So, as I said, then as a state-owned company, the contribution to government and municipal budgets is crucial. So this is more than 1 billion euros that we have paid during the last 20 years that we have invested in Latvian economy. And as we can see, finally, we are very, very looking forward to the bright future as the forest coverage is continuing to grow in Latvia. And there are 2 postcards you can see, like from 1930 and today from the same place in Latvia. It's Gauja River Valley. And there are a lot of places like this in Latvia now that once upon a time was just meadows, but now they are forests. So we look forward to the forested and green future in Latvia. Thank you very much for your attention. Do you have any questions? Yes, Yasha?
Thank you for really nice presentation and the invitation to Latvia. I'm really interested in the idea of temporary forest road. I'm just interested for how many time, let's say, in what circumstances you used the temporary road and what's the share among all roads, if you have any idea on this.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We use these kind of roads when the area is like a marshland or it's wet, the conditions are wet, and also if there is no plans to build a solid road for the next few years. So it's like a temporary road for these kind of areas. And it usually takes just a few days to put it up and put it down again. And you can use it like up to 4 times the same material.
And only this few years, you don't plan to come back maybe for a few decades before building the road on the same place, or what's this time?
Sometimes the road is not economically profitable there enough, where we use these temporary roads. For example, the soil is so unstable that it would take too much investment to make it in a solid road. Or another aspect is also nature conservation. There can be many restrictions to road building, so we use these roads also to avoid more damage to the environment or some fragile systems.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So Eric, please. Your microphone? Eric, we can't hear you.
Now we can.
Yes.
Hello, Liga. Eric from Sweden. Both you and Grigori mentioned there is an act of forestry that regulates a lot of things. Can you give us some examples from the act that affects the private forest owner? Is he free to decide, for example, when to fine or fell and when to do the thinning, and who is responsible for the new forest coming up and so on? Some details, please.
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, private owner is not free to decide himself. There is a strict regulation when you can cut the forest. It's either the age, as for the pine, it's 101 year. For spruce, it's 81 year. Or it's the dimensions of the tree that you must follow if the tree has reached certain dimensions. But the dimension is quite big. You should have the same dimensions as they could be in 100 years. The other like exception when you can cut the forest is the sanitary. We call it sanitary cuttings. If the forest has been infected by some tree bugs and it must be cut down because of the protection of the other forests around. But there are no other exceptions.
Okay. So what about thinnings, cleaning and thinnings operation?
Well, you can do this when there is a certain density of the forest. You should like prove that your forest is too dense. It should correspond also to certain criteria, and then you can do the thinning, of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do clear
and
cuts.
if you thin too much, then you are punished. So you have to be between when you need to thin and you cannot thin too much. It's regulated.
Yeah, yeah. You can't do the clear cut until you reach certain dimensions or the age of the forest.
When it comes to regeneration, who is responsible and how many years can the landowner use before it's?
It depends from the forest type, actually, but usually it's the owner who is responsible. So as I said, it depends from the forest type, but it's around 2 to 5 years you must regenerate the forest during this period. But it can be also like natural regeneration, not only planting of the seeds. So you can just leave, for example, in birch forest, it's very popular to do the natural regeneration.
It's free of cost.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
So Nike, or how I pronounce correctly?
It's okay, it's Nike.
Nike.
So thank you, Liga, for presenting the state-owned company and the whole situation. I have just a question regarding the harvesting operation. So if I understood right, you are mainly conducting this harvesting operation by yourself. So do you employ forest workers and you own also the machines? Is that correct?
So to be precise, we outsource all these services. So we make legal agreements with contractors, like companies who own harvesters. We don't own any machine. We just make the agreements with the contractors, they're like cooperation partners that do all the operations in the forest. So we are more managers than actual workers.
And so mainly this is done by fully mechanized, so with the harvester and forwarders.
Yes, actually in state forest, it's like majority. All the clear cuts are done by harvester. There can be also only exceptions in the tending situations when you can't somehow get the harvester in the forest. Then some manual work is being used.
And what about selling of wood? Do you have a long-term contract with the wood processing industry? And do you have any regulations that says that you have to sell the wood from state-owned forest mainly to national companies, or can you also export wood? Do you have any obligations regarding whom you sell the wood?
Yeah, so in some previous years, like 20 years ago, we still had a lot of long-term agreements, but they have been forbidden actually now. We don't have any more long-term agreements, and those who had some legal still obligations, we needed to follow some more years, but we are trying to get rid of all of the long-term agreements. And all the wood is being sold in auctions. So also other companies can, not only national companies, but other companies can participate in these auctions and buy wood. But there are some regulations regarding the ownership of the company. I'm not 100% sure, but as I remember, there should be some national ownership. If you some part of the company should be registered in Latvia if you participate in the auction for the wood in Latvia state forests. Yeah.
So companies, for example, from Finland or Sweden cannot just come to these auctions and buy wood.
Yeah, but I'm not 100% sure. But as I remember, the company should register in Latvia, or they should find a partner in Latvia so they can participate in these auctions.
Okay, thank you.
But I must check it, or you should Google it.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yes, Eric.
Yeah, Liga and Grigori, you have described a very ambitious forestry activities and so on. I believe that depends a lot about the funding from the EU. What can you describe what would happen if the EU will withdraw the funding?
It's an interesting question. We haven't received any EU funding actually for our forest activities.
But I thought, Grigori, you mentioned that a lot of funding goes to the forest sector from the EU.
Eric, the EU funding is not available for state forest and for municipal forest. It is available for private forest, including private companies which own forest. If it is withdrawn tomorrow, yeah, it's this funding has certainly developed forest owners thinking of forest owners that unused land should be afforested and that pre-commercial thinning needs to be done. I would think that many owners would still continue doing this also with their own money, just because they have seen the result and understood the rationale of such activities. But definitely EU funding got us from very low level to what we are today, and probably if it disappears tomorrow, it will be some decrease, but probably not back to where we were 10 years ago.
And in state forest, it doesn't matter because we haven't used any EU money, and we do all the investments from our turnover.
Okay, thank you very much.
So if there is no any questions, I thank you one more time for your attention, and I wish you a nice day then, and I say goodbye.
Thank you very much, Liga. And as you already mentioned, the presentation will be distributed to audience, so we will do that later. Thank you very much. Okay, now we probably need to take a break for until
11?
Until the Estonians will take it over today, yeah?
Yeah, so till 11 o'clock. Then
Yes,
Livia
I will start.
or Indrek. Okay, so we will be back at 11. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, take some seconds. No screen.
We can see your screen, but not, yeah, now it's fine. Perfect.
Yes, hopefully you see everything like it should be. And as I see, the time is 12 Estonian time, 11 Central European time, so we can start. So my presentation will be introduction, as Grigoris already did it 2 hours ago. And after my presentation, where I will cover mostly Estonian private forestry as a whole, then it will followed by a presentation by state forest. So who don't know me yet, I'm Indrek Jakobson. I'm representing Estonian Private Forest Center, and I'm on the position of head of development department. And before I go to forestry, I give some just basic facts about Estonia. Maybe some of us don't know it exactly. So territory is population is 1.3 million people, and its data is here quite old, but it remained more or less unchanged. So we can calculate with 1.3. Territory is 45,000 square kilometers. Our highest mountain is called Suur Munamägi. It's 318 meters high, and it's the highest mountain in all 3 Baltic states, including Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Firstly, Estonia regarded independence in 1918, lost it in 1940, and then re-independence got in 1991. So before those time, belongs to Soviet occupation from 1940 up to 1991, 50 years. By religion, mostly atheists. It's to count as 71%. It's one of the biggest percentages in Europe. But this percentage is declining year after year. So people become to be not modern, but more traditional. And the role of church is slowly increasing in society, but it's still very, very small. By population, nearly 2/3 are Estonians, and they identify themselves primarily by language. Estonian language is very complicated. It has no articles, no future senses, but has 15 cases. So it's very difficult to learn except for Finns. For them, it's easy, but not for other people. And about forests, I will talk during next slides, but already say that nearly half of the territory is covered by forests. And what about hunting? Of course, we are hunting different animals, but I want to stress that in our country, wolves, lynxes, and bears are still hunted and probably will be hunted. Estonia, if we are looking on European map, is on 5th position in Europe by forestry coverage. So we have a little less than Sweden, Finland, Slovenia, and Latvia. And if to talk now about how Estonian territory is divided by different categories, then you see a bit more than half belongs to forests, and a bit more than 30% belongs to agricultural land. Then all others have quite small percentage, 6% other. Different categories, swamps and bogs, 5%, urban areas only 4%, and inland waterways 2.5%. So main message is very easy. Forests are half of Estonian territory. We can get from forest whatever. Here are only two examples. Rakvere, it's one small city in Estonia. And a couple of years ago, we had such type of Christmas tree in Central Square. And of course, Estonian forests are quite full of different mushrooms. So in this case, I can show that we can go mushrooming even during Christmas time. So if to talk about changes in Estonian forest land, then half of territory is covered by forests. It's not all the time. In 1927, it's 93 years ago, the smallest percentage of Estonia was covered by forest. It was less than a third. And then step by step, the territory of Estonia was covered by forest. And here you see how this step by step is going. Maybe the biggest processes, first of all, were after Second World War, when started agricultural lands, some leaving for forests, which are not so profitable, so good. It was a first step on foresting, and the second, of course, after regaining independence, a lot of less profitable areas again went under forests. But I want to stress here, Estonian government doesn't subsidize and doesn't use European money for afforestation. So those processes have been provided, how to say, it's normal processes, normal economic processes. And here's just 4 pictures. The same place, the aerial photo taken 1951, and now the same photo taken a couple of years ago. And here we see the changes. That if after war there were fields, bogs, but now the more and more of territory is covered by forest, and it becomes new normality to be a forested country. If to talk about how this half of Estonian territory is divided, it's again half and half. Private, a bit less than half, and state has a bit more than half. But this proportion is changing step by step, very little steps, but permanent steps. State is selling their territory a bit, and private owners are owning state forest, little pieces of it. But those changes are very slow, and we can freely say that half belongs to state forest and half of forest belongs to private owners. And the percentage of municipal forest is very, very tiny. So only less than 2%. And if to compare us with our neighbors, already we got some numbers, then we see that Estonian and Latvian forest ownership is more or less the same. It means half belongs to state, half belongs to private, and 1% so or so, it doesn't make big sense. If to compare us with our more southern neighbor, Lithuania, then we see that state forest percentage is still half, but they have reserved for restitution 10% because to provide land reform, they haven't finished it yet. And it means there can be some significant changes. So what is growing in our forests? I have to stress that this pie shows the percentage of growing stock in private forest. In state forest, the percentage is a bit different because historically, especially during Soviet time, the forests were divided in two parts: two state forests and so-called collective farms forests. Collective farm forests had much worse part of the forests, and state forests, which were managed only by state institutions, they had the better part of the forest, and this difference remains still until nowadays. So, but if we talk about private forest, we can see that there are three big, not equal, but quite equal parts, which means birch is on the first place, pine very close on the second place. Both have 30%, and nearly 20% is spruce. In private forest, we have a lot of gray alder, nearly 10%, black alder much less, and then aspen 5%, and all others have only 1.1%. It means oak and other, for us, not so common species. So it's easy to remember, if to take Estonian forests, we can talk about three species: pine, birch, and spruce. To talk about society, forestry became, during 5 years, a quite hot topic. I remember 10 years ago, we tried to involve some people to talk about forestry, to be interested in forestry. It was quite difficult because forestry and forestry topics were not interesting for people. Nowadays, it's absolutely turned around, and forestry became very hot topic. The catalyst, not the main reason, only the catalyst, was idea to lower the cutting age of spruce stands of fertile forest types. And we wanted to lower it up to 40 years. It was a proposal of State Forest. It was an idea, not a decision, but it was a starting point, and it was followed by very different demonstrations, petitions, public letters. Then became in media a lot of negative articles about forest managers and doubts about all what is told by state about forests. And in some cases, I can understand it, because to talk to people who are not very familiar in forestry, it's quite difficult to explain the difference between forest and forest area. And so a lot of different terms. But if you don't explain it finally, it's easy to get misunderstandings. And here I have some pictures how those misunderstandings looks like. So on the upper left, it's one meeting near our parliament building, and another are just petitions on streets. So it means we can't say it's forestry war, but it's a very difficult topic to go further with forest policy in such conditions. Okay, last year it's a bit easier. Not so many people on streets. Yes, they are, but less. but in media, especially in social media, it's still hot topic. And it was a quite big obstacle to get for us a new forest policy document for next 10 years. We don't still have it. So, but let's go now to private forestry. We have nearly 80,000 forest owners. This number sometimes is said as a 110, but it depends on type of ownership. So unique forest owners, we have 80,000, and they own 1 billion hectares of forest land. And if we divide our forest owners to legal persons and individuals, so it's easy to see that only 5% are legal persons and 95% are individuals. On the other hand, area of forest land that belong to individuals only 2/3%, to legal persons 1/3, and this percentage is changing quite quickly. And the direction, of course, is clear. The percentage of individuals is reducing, and the percentage of legal persons is increasing very quickly. It's not half and half yet, but I'm sure I will see quite soon this percentage already. Despite we have different measures, campaigns, and so on and so on. Just to say, people don't sell your forest, remain as a forest owner. So who is a typical private forest owner? I have next week a quite long presentation how our forest owners are thinking and what they are doing, but here are only some basic facts on one slide. Average size of property, legal person has 65, it's even bigger now, and individuals have only 6 hectares. And it's not half, but 44% of owners have even less than 2 hectares. It means they are not only small forest owners, we have a big number of micro forest owners. And of course, they are not very active in their forest management. So we can say our ordinary forest owner is living far from his property. Mostly they are living in big cities, in capital city, and having no forest education. So it means ordinary forest owner is a person who is not very active in forest management, and we try to activate them as much as we can. State forests are managed by State Forest Management Center, and it's completely another system. Here is just one example on how small pieces is divided Estonian private forests. They are quite small, and them are quite a lot. So let's go to support system, how Estonia, in Estonia are forest owners supported. This is an overall scheme of private forestry. It means the basis and the main is forest owners. A lot of forest owners, nearly 1/3, are joined in forest owners associations. We call them associations. In Latvia, they are called cooperatives. It's a different name, but the meaning is the same. just we call associations. We have one quite big association, which has much more than 1,000 members, and we have some quite small associations, so less than 100 members. So associations are different, and their activity level is different too. And associations are joined in two big unions. We call them unions. Estonian Private Forest Union is a non-profit organization which takes together more than half of our forest owners associations. In Private Forest Union can be members be only associations, no private forest owners, no companies, only associations. And the main task of Private Forest Union is to make a lobby. It's a lobby organization to protect interests of private forest owners. On the other hand, right side, we have commercial association, which is Central Union Private Forest. It's if to translate this keskkühistu. And it joins forest owners associations too, but they have very strong focus on commercial activities, selling timber, helping in planting, and so on. It means they are not so active in lobby processes. They take part, but not so much. So their focus is mostly historical and timber sales, and from this other activities too, whatever can be done in forest. And we have an institution called Estonian Timber Trade Center, which is operating mostly in southwest part of Estonia. And it's just an organization which takes together small sellers and big sellers and helps forest owners and associations to sell forest together, get more volume and better prices, and to guarantee for buyers that they really get the forest what they are buying. And in the middle is Private Forest Center. I will talk about soon because it's not a commercial association and not a private union, but state institution. So Private Forest Center is a foundation. It's state founded on foundation under the Ministry of Environment. It's a difference to compare an example, our neighbor Latvia, where forestry activities belong mostly to Ministry of Agriculture. Estonia is different. I don't know a lot of countries in the world who have such role divided, but it's so. In Estonia, forestry belongs to Ministry of Environment. And it means Private Forest Center belongs to Ministry of Environment too. So it's official, it's private legal body, but it's 98% financed by state. And it means it's controlled by state and it's operating like a state institution. We have nearly 35 employees and it includes nearly 10 local controllers all over the country, people who are looking how the forestry work in forests are done and says it's good or not, and it depends on how the state support will be divided. And one main task of Private Forest Center, why we are here, is that it's developed a center for private forestry. It's state-owned, but focused on private forestry. The second big task is to administer national and EU subsidies for private forest owners. We have nearly half of amount national subsidies and nearly half we have EU subsidies. And of course, our institution is related to very different activities in forestry, like communication projects, promotion of bioenergy, training courses. Here is one example of training courses. Maybe even somebody finds some persons here. So it's one example of what we are doing. About support, about subsidies, will Alla talk later more detail. I will here show only the parts of our institution's budget, because our budget is mostly going to subsidies. And here we see very quickly, our budget is nearly 10 million euros, and a bit more than half belongs to EU subsidies. And again, nearly half belongs to Natura 2000 compensation. To be legally correct, it's not a subsidy, it's a compensation. And we have a lot of smaller national subsidies, like for subsidies on forest regenerations. We are supporting forest owners associations. We are supporting advisory system and so on. Small and very small subsidies, but they are paid directly by Estonian taxpayer. European money we are using only in two ways, on Natura compensation and silvicultural investments. Here are some words about forest owners associations. As I mentioned, it means in Latvia cooperatives. And what they are doing, they have a lot of tasks. First of all, of course, information and advice. It's the main thing what they are doing. They help forest owners to apply for subsidies from our institution. They represent forest owners in forest policy questions. It means, I remind you, forest owners associations are members of union, which is lobby organization. They support forest owners in silvicultural activities, jointly procurement of seedlings, joint wood sale, and even in certification. As I mentioned, we have nearly 50 associations, and half of them are quite active, half are passive, some are big, some are small, so they are quite different. But by legal status, we have very little number of exceptions. They are mostly non-profit organizations. And trend which is directed by state is that associations are developing themselves from soft organizations, which are providing trainings and advising, to more hard activities organizations, which will provide forest management activities for their members. And here you see quite linear rise of membership of forest owners associations. This year, we reached the goal of 14,000 people. The rise of members is not very quick, but it's stable. If we see the forest land owned by the members, it's not so stable rise. And here we see just some jumps and then stabilization. And why it's not so direct rise is because a lot of smaller forest owners, some of them are members of forest owners associations, just when retiring or selling their forest to companies, and it means they are losing, it means for associations are losing a part of their members' forests. So this rise is not steady and sustainable, but we predict that minimum stable position, not decline in next years. And here you see the average share of forest land too, because when forest associations started, they had quite small number of members, and the members were more strong institutions who wanted to get subsidies, be active in forestry and its forestry life. And the more became members, of course, it means the less is the territory. And now it's became 40 hectares, quite stable number, and it looks like it will be big members will hold it up, and small members who are joining keep it down. So average remains on 40 hectares. One slide about sales. It's not very often to talk about forestry sales, but per year in Estonia are sold nearly 30,000 hectares of forest land. It means 3% of our private forests. To talk about average price, here I have written 3,000 plus euros per hectare. It depends heavily about what type of forest land is sold. Is it just forest ready for cutting, or is just the first seedling? So it starts from 1,000 euros per hectare and can go, of course, much higher than 3. But 3,000 plus euros, it's an average for country. And the amount of transactions trade is near more than 100 million euros per year. And of course, if you talk about 3 Baltic states taken together, it's 400 million. So Estonia is not the biggest, and it means we take nearly a quarter of 3 Baltic states forest trade. So, and if to talk about what is state message for forestry, here you see we are talking about forestry development plan up to 2020, and if we are looking to calendar, it's already 21. What does it mean? It means, I already mentioned, due to forestry war and other different public activities, we just don't have a new development plan, and we are still living on the old plan, which was created up to 2020, and now it's just have to each year prolonged up to 2022. And main messages in this plan is to increase overall felling volume in Estonia, because we started less than 10 million, and the target was maximum up to 15 million, but it wasn't reached last year data. It means 2 years ago, it was maximum, it was 12.7 million. Last year it was less. We'll see. Now we have again very high wood price. Maybe it will be more this year. It's too early to predict. The second message is to increase reforestation in private forests. It means not to leave it on just natural regeneration, and our target is at minimum 40% of cleared cut areas are regenerated by people, not by nature. And of course, to increase the area of pre-commercial thinnings and cleanings. Finally, if we are looking on the picture, what's this guy showing? He's showing that we have to follow the same development directions which we had last 10 years. It means, again, more wood to the market, more thinnings, more forest regeneration, and new issue is more forest certification, because our government has supported for 3 years just for forest owners associations some costs on forest certification, just to help and support and motivate forest owners to certificate their forests. This certification belongs, of course, only to FSC and PFC, no other certification types. And one perspective is to take all the forest owners association under one commercial brand, which you see here down, like Rakvere Metsaühistu. It's a commercial brand of Central Cooperative and other forest owners associations to bring more of them under Forest Owners Union, just to make those umbrella organizations stronger. And if their organizations are stronger, the winner are the associations and the members too. As I already mentioned, the new development plan up to 2030, still intensive and emotional debates are going on. Each year we have a promise that this year it will be taken, but as it's very difficult to reach consensus, we still don't have a forest development plan. Of course, we have still very strong pressure to decrease cutting volumes. And of course, impact of LULUCF, especially on climate issues, is still for us unclear. So that can become quite interesting developments. We just don't know what will happen in the future. But we know only one: we will follow the same main principles, but it's more difficult to reach, as debates on streets quite often are very emotional. So I spent 38 minutes and we have now 7 minutes for questions and answers, if you have. So Eric, you're welcome. We don't hear you, please unmute.
Okay, try again. Thank you very much, Henrik, for your presentation. And I noticed that you described the discussions about forestry as a very hot topic.
Yeah.
In your country. I tell you, it's the same in Sweden, so don't worry.
Okay.
You mentioned
the same
that,
picture, yeah? In Sweden, you see.
Yeah, oh, yes, every day. Every
Okay.
day. But very much in social medias. You mentioned that you have the highest mountain among the Baltic countries.
Exactly.
And,
yeah.
And from the Latvian board, we heard that they are the leader of the Baltic Sea region. Is there only a competition, or are there any collaborations between the three countries?
It's in this case, it's more than competition than collaboration. But could you detail this question a bit?
I mean, do you have annual meetings with your colleagues in the other countries? Do you have excursions? Do you have some research projects that you to share with the other countries? Or what are the links between the three countries in the forestry aspect?
You mentioned 3 different aspects, and I can answer to all those 3 is yes. First of all, we have some meetings of quite high-level policymakers. It means representative on high level from ministries and forestry top organizations. And they met yearly, 1 year in Latvia, 1 year in Lithuania, 1 year in Estonia. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we haven't met last 2 years, but we had quite regular and very useful and very interesting meetings because the forestry policies are not the same in 3 Baltic countries. An example, Latvia has supported for years afforestation on non-forest land. In Estonia, we can't achieve it yet, despite it's very effective to fight climate change. The second point, of course, our forestry scientific institutions have joint scientific projects. We have in Estonia 1 forestry university and 1 applied university of applied sciences on forestry area. So it's quite a normal, typical scientific collaboration between countries, of course, and we have not a lot joint projects between only 2 countries. If we have some projects between those 3 countries or neighboring countries, it's much more. It means a projects which takes together all partners from different countries from European Union. So if to talk about contacts on policy level, it's very tight direct contacts. If to talk about research cooperation and joint projects, it's more on European level.
Okay, thank you very much. And I wish you good luck with LULUCF and other ideas that come from Brussels.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, we have exactly 15 minutes break, coffee break, whatever break. And then we want to give a floor to our representative from State Forest.
Okay, thank you, Indrek. See you soon.
See you soon.
Hello, Ulvar.
Hi.
So Ulvar is about to give us presentation about the state forest management in Estonia. Welcome. The floor.
Right, so may I start? Yeah?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to give you an overview about what is RMK, a State Forest Management Center, what we are doing. Before I'm going to use this time slope reserved for the presentation, I just introduce myself. I'm an educated forest engineer. I've been working for private companies in the past, but most of my working years have been related with working for the state organizations, especially for the state management organization, and since last reform or structural changes in our system, I've been in charge for the timber marketing division. Therefore, I'm pretty well aware about what's going on in forestry in Estonia, especially, of course, what concerns relationship to our main collaborative partners, in forest industry and contractors and other organizations also. But today I will cover the whole bunch of activities under the umbrella of the organization. And I have also a presentation for you. So I try to share my screen now. Let's see how it works. It should be this one. No. Yes. So I hope you can see this. More or less 20 years, the current state forest management system has been used in Estonia, and the organization has set milestones and several times renewed milestones. And as we are different type of organization like other state-owned forest management organizations in other EU countries, according to my understanding, there are no similar type of organizations. Therefore, maybe it has been also a challenge to achieve the goals and targets which have been set for us. And as a core, we are Forest Act based and of course follow all the other legislative documents. But the main difference compared to other state forest managers, which are more or less state-owned companies or more free in their decision-making process, our organization is not allowed to deal with those issues which are not directly written down into the Forest Act and also into the decree which stipulates those obligations which we have to deal with. In this slide you have here maybe just 10 most important facts about the organization, but also those facts which each of them are introducing briefly different aspects and describe us. So the organization, therefore, as I said, is focusing on obligations written down in the law, and the 6 main important tasks therefore are the growing of forests, preserving natural values in state forest properties, at the same time carrying out all the protection works, earning revenue to the state, as we are having the whole chain of custody operated by ourselves, and therefore we are providing the forest-related products, mainly timber, to the society, to the companies who are interested to buy, and of course, beside direct forest management, we do create recreational possibilities and opportunities in state forest areas. And of course, using the same resource and values, we try to raise the public awareness about nature and provide different types of programs in our visitor centers and forest centers. But more or less those aspects will be also covered later in this presentation. As we are, as you can see, 45% of the total Estonia's forests are maintained by a state forest manager. So therefore, you can probably understand already that we are represented everywhere in the country. The forests in Estonia are rather mixed, and each singular forest unit or the cadastral unit is quite small, and therefore there are many owners having properties side by side next to each other, and that makes, of course, all the activities more complicated, and needs to pay more attention to what we do and how we do. And a small country, many forest owners, as you already have heard earlier today, and yes, state tries to be then among of other forest owners and do utmost best in order to have each forest site its best value. So we have sort of distributed the total area into different zones or categories where we are seeing higher values for the forest management point of view, where we see higher expectation and value for the recreational point of view or nature protection point of view, and therefore these responsibilities maybe even quite often covering the same areas, and then there are the regulations also different to what we would use if only one core team would be applied. So it's a challenge, and so far the share and the type of organization has remained where it is, and also as in Estonia after the regaining independence, this land reform initiated, and that was completed by end of last year. So there are almost no lands in Estonia anymore, forest lands also, which don't have any proper owner. So the land board was responsible completing the land reform and restitution process, and maybe out of total Estonian forest area, which is roughly 2.4 million hectares, we are having only 20,000 hectares still outstanding and not yet taken in use, either for the protection purposes or management purposes or other purposes. So this will be completed finally, hopefully in coming months, and therefore the share with regard to forest ownership also in Estonia is anymore well, not possible to change, sort of, if the country or the parliament doesn't want to make any more tragical decisions with regard to, for example, state property share in total, but there are no such kind of political movements or ideas in discussions at the level of lobby, which are talking about selling off state forest property to other persons or to privatize it. So it's out of question at the moment. It doesn't, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that we may not return to that issue later if things are changing and government and country needs some additional benefits, which is not possible to achieve through current system. The State Forest Management Center is certified. The processes are certified according to the FSC and PEFC certificates, as well as the environmental management and quality management certificates. We just recently had the re-audits both for PFC and the FSC, and both those NGOs were confirming that our activities correspond to the standards which are basis for the certification. So we are happy about this, and can provide therefore all the wood also as a certified wood to our customers. And the customers also have told us that end users in different countries where the wood products are exported are very much welcoming certified products. For example, we held a survey a couple of months ago and got this kind of feedback that about 75% of our customers wish that FSC certified wood would be available and long term, and about 45% of customers said that PEFC certified wood should be available long term. So as far as those this is very much needed and expected by end markets. It gives also to us a further commitment to carry on the sustainable forest management practices to meet the requirements as they come from the certificates. As I already mentioned, that the share is nearly half of the total forest maintained by us. The organization therefore is administrating 1.4 million hectares of lands, including little more than 1 million hectares of forest land. And out of this forest land, we manage 60%. So 600,000 hectares is sort of economical forests, and 400,000 hectares of state forest land is protection and protected forests. The number of full-time employees has been rather stable within last, I would say, 10-12 years at level of 700, but indirectly we provide job to a numerous employees of contractors, and that number is 10 times bigger. So therefore, daily basis, we would say that about 7,000 people are working either in state forest or for state forest, doing all different kind of jobs and providing this service. And we are, as a big forest manager, we are having also opportunity to earn, therefore, profits from selling timber to the customers, and as a location of the country on the coast of the Baltic Sea, we quite much we sell wood also outside to the Scandinavian companies, but the most highly valued wood, or the wood which provides higher added value products, as the logs, plywood logs, veneer logs, saw logs, different grade, we sell locally to the processing companies, and the dependence of the revenue is very much related on the market prices and how those are developing in general in that region, in the Scandinavian area and around the Baltic Sea. And of course, there are other influencers affecting, like we even got influenced by the corona pandemic outcomes, as we have seen the growing demand for construction material within the beginning of this year, within EU, everywhere, globally as well. So that has led to a high, rapid price increase, and all forest owners definitely have benefit out of growing timber prices. Now already we have seen this downward trend as the peak has achieved, and producers have their stocks full of products already, and some kind of balancing situation has been achieved also in the construction sector. So therefore, this kind of fluctuation we saw has gone, and maybe somewhat more stable months are ahead. But nevertheless, I'm telling this because, as you see here, we are paying quite high income tax and dividends to the state as well. We pay land tax out of the land we are administrating. So the country is quite small, as you know, but at the same time, it provides remarkable share in terms of jobs, especially in countryside and rural areas, and directly the number of jobs provided in the sector is nearly 30,000, and also indirectly it provides other jobs like related with transportation, for example, and other mechanical services, and therefore the country's economy very much depend on how the sector develops, what are their possibilities for enlargement or further growth, and at the same time to secure the other development processes in environmental protection and social sphere and other things which necessarily depend and rely on how the forest sector is developing. And as a state forest manager, we very much are waiting for the national forest management plan, or forest plan, which according to our general view in a country, the national forest management, forestry plan, development plan must be, or had to be already for the next 10 years in place at the end of last year. Unfortunately, that has not been possible to achieve. So therefore, it's still on the process led by the Minister of Environment, and there has been set a new goal to finalize Estonia's 10 years forest development plan by end of next year. And in line with that, in RMK, we are also not pushing faster than the national level plans are made. So therefore, internally, we also have committed ourselves to prepare our development for the next 10 years and be ready to have an approval from the owner by the end of next year. So current year and next year in Estonia are somewhat stagnating years in a way. I mean, stagnating years because we don't have a new forest development plan. We don't have new national forest development plan. So we only have prolonged our latest development plan for current year and next year. So therefore we are fulfilling, keep doing what we do according to the law, but not having any long-term goals set and approved yet. So as RMK is part of the total picture, so we can't be ahead of that, and therefore we are also in a preparational phase right now. So we believe that in long term the core businesses remain the same in State Forest Management Center. Maybe there will be additional ideas implemented, like using lands more for creating other uses of land, like for windmill parks or eco services or whatever land uses are needed and for which state forest land could be used. We will then be there to provide the conditions in order to use the state property and also. The country, what's not the country, but the contribution to the country's economy has been within the last periods quite remarkable, and that reflects also the development in the markets, because nearly 99% of our turnover comes from the sale of timber. So therefore, if economical recession may happen, then of course our turnover collapses, as well as our profitability may be hampered, as well as our dividends to the state may be squeezed. So but up to now it has been an efficient and profitable years, these last ones, and we are not already afraid about current year, thanks to the same developments in the wood market I just mentioned earlier, but for which we are using the incomes. This has been agreed many years ago at our owners level, that out of total profit, the dividends comprise about 50%, so that the other part out of dividends we are committed to invest back to the forest. So that's why we are dealing with different types of activities, and we do lots of forest improvement and other silvicultural investments, which create the basis to have wealthy and good growing forests in long run. And as we are, as I mentioned, profit-making agency, then our budget is not depend and part of the state budget, but it is different. It's a separate budget, and only the share of the dividend which we transfer to the state will be recorded in the state budget strategy and create part of state government's budget or a state budget. But the non-dependence of the state budget is enabling us also to be flexible in our practice and manage our operations according to the best understanding. And of course, the core business as such is a forest management. We are our predecessors in state forestry have left us good forests, and we are also entitled and committed to continue those steps taken during years in the past, and thanks to the forest management practices during the Soviet period, which were also properly handled, we do have nowadays a forest distribution which is rather even in terms of age groups, for example, of different tree species. And thanks to the regular management during the Soviet period, also we are having more higher valued species which were grown and replanted back to the forest, and the harvestings and the thinnings and other silvicultural measures which were taken throughout the years on a regular basis. We don't have many areas where the yield of economical forests is low, or where the representation of tree species is poor, and where the, for example, gray alder or salix or other low value in terms of wood use, low value species are growing. So that shifting from Soviet time to the independence time has continued in the same way, using the same practices and learning new things and using modern technology. So currently we are yearly basis trying to keep the annual regeneration cutting area in percentage wise in 1% of the total forest area. So roughly we cut the whole forest down within 100 years, but at the same time we regenerate everything. So that means that every year 1% of state forest is regenerated, having theoretically then having equally forests which cover the whole grade or the scale from first year till 100 year. Of course, we do have different ages for different tree species, and depending on the soil types and ground quality, also the quality classes in each tree species for in terms of felling also are applied, but in average. That 11,000 hectares of regeneration every year needs about 23 million forest plants. In Estonia, the forest plants, new forest plants, are grown either by private companies or by state. And in State Forest Management Center, we do have our container plant nurseries, as well as Peru plant nurseries, and we grow all the forest plants which are needed to regenerate state forests. So we do not interfere into forest plant business in private sector, meaning we do not grow and sell forest plants to private sector, providing to the companies develop this business and grow forest plants to private forest owners, depending on how big is the demand by the private persons or companies who also do the regeneration works and need to buy new plants. So therefore, this is split sort of into two different parts in Estonia. So the focus regarding the forest management has been set, of course, for those forests which are called sort of economical forests. According to the law, different measures are allowed. In that slide, you can see that 30%, a bit more than 30% of the forests are strictly protected. That means that we do nothing in these forests beside direct nature protection works if Estonian Environmental Service requests us to do some works, or if they are related with some nature protection projects, and where the habitats must be regained or restored, and other direct nature protection measures. In such a case, we do some job in strictly protected forest, but never having the aim to produce wood, to grow forest for wood. It's natural development only. Where we do some small-scale forest management is a protection forest. This is a category where in a limited scale cuttings are permitted. That represents about 8% in state forest area, and most cases these are some zones surrounding strictly protected forest, or they are on the coastlines of water areas or river coastlines or such areas. And I don't know whether my the previous presentation you have seen today or had a slide or not, but if you put together 30% in state forest and the rest what has strictly protected in private forest, you got countrywide percentage which is around 13-14% of strictly protected forest. So majority of this area is belonging to the state, and there is a ongoing process in the country that those private forest owners which don't wish to keep protected forests in their ownership, then they can sell off those forests to the state, and we then are committed to buy from private persons forest areas which are having some kind of protection regimes. So therefore there are changes also, but this is very marginal in terms of hectares, how much of those kind of transactions are done. Annually agreed value for which state is buying forest from private entities is up to 5 million euros, not more. And on the other side, what we do, we sell off those economical forests out of this 62% parcel, which are locating in remote areas from our point of view, meaning surrounded by private forests only, or are single small lots too far from our compact forest areas. And the optimization of the land, state land structure, therefore, is also one of these ongoing processes, and those areas which we sell, those new owners then can carry on and continue forest management, and there are buyers which are companies, there are buyers which are neighbor forest owners, so which have usually been interested to buy and increase their properties. So that's such small processes are going on, and therefore the both state and private owners can optimize their forest structure. And more or less, if we continue on the current distribution in long term, if the law will not be changed, then of course those activities are more focused on compact areas in economical forests, and makes for us also the management a bit more efficient, and those activities which are related with direct nature protection works in strictly protected areas then depend on long run also about the need where the supervisor is carried on by the by other state authorities, and then RMK or us will be asked to do the job. In in the standwise majority of state forests are pine stands, followed by birch, spruce, and then other deciduous species having much smaller percentage. And as I said, we don't have much grey alder and black alder and other deciduous stands, which are having less value also in terms of the wood quality. So that distribution here describes quite well that historically our colleagues in the past have done also very regular and proper forest management. And thanks to this kind of long view in forestry, the surplus, the total surplus has been increased in the past and still increasing. And our annual growth per hectare is about 4.8 cubic meters at the moment. So we have managed to increase it as well, slowly, but still. So focusing in my next couple of slides a bit into the works we directly do in different areas. As told, regeneration cutting comprises the biggest share, and in Estonian case, in most cases, this is a clear cutting, and of course, at the same time, clear cutting has been a measurement which has brought very much attention by the society and different NGOs and local people. And what we have done now within this year and last year, we have implemented a new way of doing regeneration works closer to the living areas, closer to the villages and cities, where we are using communication tool with local representatives. And before we plan and execute any kind of cuttings in so-called higher public interest areas, we go through the discussion around many times with local people and decide together with local communities how they would see the forest future in close area to their living areas. So depending on these kind of mutual agreements, I believe that more and more shelter wood cuttings will be done in coming years, and maybe cuttings not at all in those forests where local people think that cuttings are not needed. But we try to create the long view, how would this forest looks like if we do not interfere at all. So this is also a way of educating and teaching to the people how forest is developing naturally. If initially a managed forest will be left untouched. But this is one factual situation we are faced with nowadays, and we have to accept that this is normal change, and awareness of the people has led to this kind of changes. Concerning thinnings and other cuttings, we do according to what's best for the forest, the share of thinnings and sanitary cuttings. And sanitary cuttings, of course, very much depend on sanitary situation in the forest. And as you are aware, in the Central Europe especially, the high damage by spruce bark beetle. That bug has also noticed more and more in our latitude, and we have also done last year 2 to 3 times more sanitary cuttings in the areas which were damaged by spruce bark beetle. And this year also the summer was very hot and dry, and we are worried a bit that might be also soon or next year higher damaged areas expected by spruce bark beetle. Yeah, and then deforestation, what is necessary to use the land for other purposes besides forest management, especially infrastructure development or real estate development areas. Yeah, and in this slide, the same forestry works are also illustrated in terms of how big is the share in percentage out of total forest land annually used for doing those forestry works. Forest renewal is the forest regeneration practice, and including different ways of how we do. In state forest, as I said, fully we regenerate, and we are using up to 50% container plants and another 50% bare root plants to regenerate. And of course, there are different measures how to prepare the sites and carry on the regeneration. And here in this slide, we have the drop down of different species, how much we grow those per annum, and you can see that it has been more than 23 million last year, and this year we achieved a new record. We planted 24 million plants. At the same time, RMK is responsible to keep the strategical seed surplus of the country, and here you can see how many kilograms of different tree seeds we have on stock right now. Back to using the investments, we are rebuild and reconstruct forest roads and reconstruct drainage systems in state forest. Every year try to do one certain area in order to keep it working, and in order to have the drainage systems in a flat country like we are all the time working. We the total cycle to reconstruct all current drainage systems takes 30 years. So that it means that if we continue on that scale as we have done so far, we can maintain it by 30 years. I probably will not go more detail into timber marketing. It's related with what's going on generally in the market, and therefore is quite typical maybe to other neighborhood countries as well. And the price-wise, yeah, timber prices are here as seen in average level. As a forest owner in Estonia, the owner must collect waste if such have been noticed in the areas. If someone has just used forest for its waste bin, then unfortunately the owner is responsible. But and unfortunate is that although we are teaching people that if you can bring something to the forest, take it back to your home, or don't to pollute, and then still we have every year many areas where we can find waste dropped down, and we then collect this. Forest fires is not an issue probably in Estonia for many years anymore. Small scale forest fires have happened, and thanks to big percentage of wetlands and quite small areas of forest also, so the fires are noticed quite quickly if such happens. Then small slide about hunting in our areas. The state is not providing any kind of hunting services besides just selling the right to hunt, and the share of hunting areas owned by state currently is very small one, only something like 70,000 hectares. So it's not our sort of business, but where it is state forest land, then of course we provide this. And with regard to nature protection, what is important maybe to point out here, that out of this profit we earn, we invest back to the forest some amounts concerning nature protection as well. That is in the scale of 5 million euros per annum. Partly we also use the money which comes from other sources, from other funds, but more or less here you can see that the nature protection works are growing year by year, and at the moment the highest challenge is to restore habitats, especially bog land habitats, and also the semi-natural biotic communities, which need higher attention. And here, in terms of hectares cumulatively, you can see the goal we have for this year and next year, and we are aiming to fulfill this. And this is practical works. These are practical works which we do, and are very proud that this is possible. And how it is distributed in different types of works, then the bog community restoration is now creating and becoming a bigger part, and these semi-natural biotic community restoration areas have been rather stable, but they are still having high attention. And one of our businesses or the operational teams is the recreation possibilities in state forest area, for which we have worked out a countrywide structure and very well worked system in order to provide all kind of services. These are free of charge, and we do not provide any services for a charge, except if visitors would like to buy a bottle of water in our visiting centers or something like that. But all those recreational places nature troops and paths and camping sites and grilling sites are free of charge. And we are therefore trying to guide the people and keep them online or on path, sort of, that we ask people to visit forest areas and prepare areas for them to be attractive for recreational purposes, and the number of visits therefore has been increased in recent years also. And beside providing direct leisure activities in different places, we also have thought about hikers and have built now already 3 countrywide hiking roads, which all are crossing in one nice place, which is called Aegviidu. So you are very welcome to visit Estonia, and if you have time, please come to Aegviidu and start your hiking track from this location, or you may use other places, and they all are marked and connected, so it's very nice way of spending time in the nature. And for the recreational business, we also spend about 6 to 8 million euros per year. Besides, we sell Christmas trees. We give the right to cut Christmas tree using SMS payment, and every year that has been also one of the favorite things among citizens that are going together with families and friends to the forest and cut a Christmas tree for their homes. And my last slide is about research. As RMK is also providing good ground for applied research projects, we have been supporting scientists for many years and using already throughout the last 12 years 2.6 million euros for different kind of research projects, and that's why we are just not funding fundamental research. We are funding applied research just to have some kind of practical use also later, which we can use in doing daily developments and practice in state forest. So I'm a bit sorry that I used now even more time than was agreed, but I hope that I gave you a brief overview of what and how RMK is doing the business. Thank you. Thank you very much. I do not hear you anymore somehow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ulvar.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And have a good day.
Have a good day.
We have one question from Eric. Can we do that?
Okay, a final question, and it's about the future.
Yes.
The young Estonians, boys and girls, are they interested in the forestry sector and higher education? Do you fill your seats at the university in your forestry programs?
What we have seen now, a new wave of growing interest. For example, this year, the new applicants in the Estonia Rural University for Forestry was exceeding something like 40. And there is the same number of, or a smaller number of places, so that we have overcome a kind of lower years we saw in the past, But compared to how many are new applicants for example, ecosystem management or biology in universities in Estonia, this is of course small number. As for the biology, there are places more than 300 provided. So therefore, there are still a big discrepancy. But we see that thanks to our good educational ground provided in Luwa Technical School, Forestry School, as well in our rural university, this profession is still popular, and young people are willing to study forestry.
Okay, good for you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry. If you have further questions, please send it to Livia, and Livia can then send it to me by email, because I have to continue with my other commitments right now. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and see you tomorrow.
And thank you.
Yes.
Tomorrow we are also starting at 9. So see you tomorrow. Thank you very much to all presenters for today presentations. Have a nice afternoon and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.